Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Beyond the Summit presentation. I'm Blaze, this is Vikramon. We're going to be bringing you guys a game between mith.trust and MUFC. These two teams are meeting up in the quarterfinals round of GEST. It's a best of three series. Starting off here with game number one. Interesting matchup. These teams have made it very, very far in the event, and now we're going to be competing to move on through to the next round. Yeah, like I said, this is Blaze, and also here, Vikramon. How's it going, man?
It's going really well. I'm excited for this game. I am interested, however, about these lineups. I have to note, MUFC are playing with only two of their core heroes. The guy named Love You is actually FCFZ, and Winter is here too, is obviously the team captain. He's probably the person that most people watching this stream know because he's been casting on BTS quite a bit. He's an excellent caster, he's an excellent player. But they are playing with three stand-ins, at least two of whom I know for a fact usually play for First Departure. So this is another strong team. First Departure are quite a good Asian team. So we actually have almost a super group composed of MUFC and First Departure here, playing up against what is the full mith.trust roster. So if you know anything about super groups and pop music, sometimes it can be good, but sometimes it can be kind of a disaster. And of course, MUFC is an explosive team in general. When they're hot, they're really hot and they play extremely well. Whereas mith.trust have been more of those sort of consistent performers. Most recently, we saw them take second in the Dota Hut Invitational. Was it Dota Hut? Sorry, the Dota Talk Invitational, which they performed very, very well in, only losing to Zenith in the finals. So Myth have had, I think, the balance of the recent results, but MUFC have huge upside, and adding on a big part of First Departure might increase that upside, it might not. Anyway, we're well into the draft now. Sorry, I'll cut off.
Yeah, no problem. One thing that I don't know, like I said, I've mentioned a couple times over, I'm not as familiar with the Asian scene as I am with the Western scene, as that's kind of what I mostly cast. But in this case here, mith.trust, I have caught a few of their games here and there, and one thing I really like about their draft is they kind of go against the grain a little bit. They kind of do their own thing just a little bit here and there. They still kind of prioritize similar heroes, but play them in different regards. A lot of split push, and just a really, really cool style across the board. But we see right off the bat, the Shadow Demon and the Anti-Mage combine together some decent amount of potential in the lane, but they are unfortunately, for that reason, giving away some great solo heroes. The Magnus, the Darkseer, great AoE initiation control, and on top of that, the Lone Druid, who can survive through very, very difficult situations and come out on top with some very, very substantial farm, and try to go for some good disables. If you can entangle proc on that Anti-Mage, he's really gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. The thing is, the reason why they picked up this Anti-Mage so high is mith.trust love this hero. We've seen them play it quite a bit. They're probably going to put TNK up on... Sorry, they're going to probably put Lakel's up on it, although TNK is an option. We've seen them both play #1 for them. But mith.trust love this big carry play. They actually play Morphling a lot more than a lot of teams do. In fact, we've seen a little bit of a resurgence of Morphling, both in Asia and a little bit in the West with Mao's Black picking it up. But they like Morphling here. They like Anti-Mage. It's not uncommon to see him in the first set of picks, and definitely not in a mith.trust game. We'll see most likely Lakel's go up on that Anti-Mage and try to get really, really big. MUFC, meanwhile, a little bit of a more classic lineup. They've got the Magnus, the Lone Druid together. I mean, as you mentioned, this is a lot of disable. Even an Anti-Mage can fall prey to this sort of combo. And the Darkseer, I mean, obviously just such a versatile hero. I was almost missing seeing him in the first stage of picks because that last game he was picked up very, very late both times. But now he sort of regains his rightful early pick status in this game.
Yeah, so now the question is, what do mith.trust want to round out? And in this situation, because MUFC have picked up all their solos, I feel it would be very negligent for them not to look for their solo mid hero here. There's a lot of great heroes that can deal with a Magnus or a Darkseer. A Puck is one of those that comes to mind immediately because you can't just skewer on into a position you want or surge on to control things as well. The silence is great against both heroes, but they're going to go with a Leshrac to round out their tri-lane, and this is still a very, very powerful way to draft because they can guarantee the Anti-Mage is going to find some farm here and there, and presumably move in towards a very swift Battle Fury with which to counter push against the Lone Druid, or just a split push of his own volition on the opposing lanes. So a lot of different potential here, but this allows MUFC to just go for hardcore bans on mid heroes because they already have their Magnus, their Darkseer, and even the Lone Druid can go for a solo whenever he wants to. So in this situation, they have absolutely no reason not to take off every single good solo hero and take them off the table for mith.trust.
Definitely, and I think that's a very smart move. We could end up with mith.trust falling into the same sort of situation that we saw Neolution International fall in the first game of the last series, where you just have this one role that's so hard to fail. Like, you don't have your first choice, you don't have your second choice, you have to settle for like your 10th choice. And that is something Myth.trust could fall into, but I do think the core of this lineup is one that they're just so happy with. I actually think Myth.trust will be okay taking a little bit of a beating in the mid and off lanes in exchange for having such a strong tri-lane, such a good protection for Lakel's. I really hope it's Lakel's, because I'll feel like an idiot if it turns out to be TNK, but probably Lakel's up on that anti-mage, just farming, and then seeking to take over the game. That's a position we know that Myth.trust are comfortable with, and so the fact that they managed to lock in such a strong tri-lane, where anybody coming near that AM is going to be in for a world of hurt from the disruption Splitter with combo. Sorry, my brain is starting to slow down a tiny bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've been kind of going on the European times as far as most of our tournaments, so the sleep deprivation does kick in after a while, but just keep that caffeine rolling, and I'm sure we'll be able to pick up most of this awesome Dota action here. Either way, we do see, again, the bans continue with that puck taking out the Queen of Pain as well, and now I feel Myth.trust are kind of losing a little bit of a grip as far as how they can control the game. They're going to have to go for something far less orthodox as far as how they want to control things, and it may or may not be to their benefit here. One thing that they do have right now is a ranged hero advantage, going with the two supports, Shadow Demon and Leshrac, and going up against that Magnus and Darkseer. What they can do now is ban out really good zoning support. So the Chen taking out the Rubik as well. Interesting situation to ban out the Rubik. The one main thing to look at here is they don't have first pick. If Myth.trust had first pick available, they could be looking at a Rubik mid to steal up RPs and vacuums and so on and so forth. It's not as common since he's very sluggish with the movement speed reduction, but it's still something that we see from time to time in a couple of different scenes. But either way, in this case here, banning out support Rubik, banning out the Chen, and trying to just kind of cut MUFC's legs underneath them in the sense of getting a carry a lot of farm.
They're trying to be very careful about these bans, which I can't blame them, because as you said, they're at a delicate point in the draft, Blaze. They can't ban anything that they might... I mean, obviously they're safe banning tri-lane heroes, and they're going to ban probably a tri-lane hero again with this next ban, because those are the ones they don't need, and those are the ones MUFC still needs. But MUFC, I love all of these bans, the Quap, the Puck. I'm not actually... I don't know about the Bounty Hunter ban so much, just because... Well, I guess the Leshrac and Shadow Demon, once they secure the tri-lane, can be a very strong roaming force, and you pair that up with the Bounty Hunter and get lots of track gold and just win. So actually, no, I think all three bans from MUFC, very strong. And meanwhile, Myth.trust taking out the Enigma with their last ban, just for that sort of wombo approach, like making sure that they can't set up the Magnus Enigma combo that just, I mean, you can't live through that, it's too much crowd control.
Now, yeah, the Juggernaut coming on through will be a great hero to pick up. Sorry?
No, I was just saying, Jug again.
Yeah.
Jug Lone Druid, we're seeing it more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of potential in push, but I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form designed to be a gimmick here. The main thing is MUFC banned out the lifesteal really early on. They want to be able to contest against the Shadow Demon Leshrac combo, but you need some kind of way to, in a fraction of a second, go between that disruption and that split earth without actually being focused down. And with lifesteal banned out, like I said, Juggernaut is actually really one of the only heroes that can accomplish that feat. So that's what they're looking for here, is just to be able to actually contest in a try versus try situation, and so they will be able to actually play around with the Juggernaut a little bit more. And the one issue is now they need a really good support, one that can pretty much play every single aspect of this board. Run around with only boots, maybe magic wand, and otherwise just play wards, and that's the Vengeful Spirit. That is exactly what they want. That is going to be able to be the least item-dependent hero, one of the least item-dependent supports at all. If she can hit level 11, that is luxury for her. That is amazing for a Vengeful Spirit, but in this sense, otherwise she's just going to add in nice right-click potential, the Wall of Replica plus Wave of Terror. It adds up a lot of damage very swiftly. Same with the Vengeance Aura. And
the reduced armor combined with two pretty heavy physical damage dealers in the form of the Juggernaut and the Lone Druid, that's a lot of damage. And let me also point out, MUFC have given themselves sort of multiple routes to victory. If they run a tri-lane with Jug, Vengeful Spirit, and wait, no, they can't do that. Never mind. I just realized that they actually have the Darkseer. So actually, where does the Juggernaut end up fitting into this picture? Because
it's difficult. We have, in some rare occasions, seen a Darkseer actually go on a tri-lane. It does neglect his experience gain, but it does give him some potential to deal a little bit extra damage. Iron Shell and Blade Fury, that's a lot of AoE damage that I can bring somebody down very quickly over a short few seconds, but it's not the strongest of lanes. It's not going to be the biggest deal one way or another, so we could just look at a jungle setup.
Jungle LD?
Yeah, you could see a jungle Lone Druid or a jungle Darkseer. In either case, it will limit them quite a bit. But you were talking about FZ, and what he can accomplish on a hero that can acquire some farm, and I think if he's looking for something stable, that he's going to be in a much better position in the jungle, leaving Darkseer for that offlane. It's still a difficult position to be in because Miracle, if he does go for the offlane, he's going to be looking to time his surge extremely carefully because they still have the disruption, they still have the split earth, they have a lot of ways in a 1 versus 3 environment for Darkseer to just be completely screwed over in that other lane. It's kind of one thing that we saw in one of our previous games where Darkseer was the only kill on the board for an extended period of time, and that sets you back really hardcore.
Absolutely. And I mean, FCFC, we've actually seen him play Lone Druid before. He's a very good Lone Druid player. I did want to say that having Magnus and Vengeful Spirit gives you this sort of secret explosiveness just in the form of the Vengeance Aura as a percentage buff to damage, and the Empower is a percentage buff to damage. Sometimes when we see European, North American games, we see this paired most frequently with a Gyrocopter. But frankly, it's not like it works badly with a Lone Druid Bear. It's not like it works badly with a Juggernaut. Especially, I mean, Juggernaut has got that crit. It's not the biggest crit in the world, but it's certainly not bad. And so that's a lot of damage that he can actually deal. And this is also another chance for us to check out this brand new Vengeful Spirit model, because she's not picked up that often. Yeah. She is a pretty impactful pick when she is picked up, and I definitely think she was the best support left in the pool at the time they picked her. So smart drafting by both teams. I like the Tidehunter. We haven't talked about it at all from Myth.trust, but it gives them that AoE initiation, get MUFC out of their comfort zone. Of course, the Juggernaut is not likely to actually be impinged by that, but the Magnus is. You can sort of try to pick him off early and just sort of take fights on your own terms. It looks like they're actually... will they go for something like a First Blood here? Yeah, they're sending 4 down. They're going to try to pick somebody off in the jungle, I feel like.
It seems like both teams have some similar intentions along those lines here. They are predicting out an aggressive tri-lane, perhaps, from the opposition here, because there's a lot of potential from Shadow Demon and the Leshrac together, as well as an Anti-Mage for some nice backup right-click damage. But there's a couple different ways this can be laned. The Anti-Mage can actually solo top, the Weaver can solo top, a lot of different ways, but in this situation, I believe more likely it's going to be that AM, and just based on his position, but also based on his item build. Stout Shield and the ROP to go into Tranquils, he is going to have huge amounts of sustain. He can compete very, very directly 1 versus 1. The question is whether or not that'll be the matchup he gets, as we do see the one lane that I was uncertain about, but definitely still feasible, is they do have all 3 of these heroes up here. The Darkseer, the Vengeful Spirit, and the Juggernaut. Not the most powerful thing, but still has some decent amount of potential up against anybody that isn't, unfortunately, a Weaver or Anti-Mage. The Blink, the Shikuchi, it's still very difficult to net kills one way or another.
Quite hard, and Vengeful Stun, which is their only single target stun, is not the longest duration stun in the world. Even at max rank, Blaze, it's less than 2 seconds, right? Yeah, it's 1.75. So their initiation, unless Swap manages to get leveled quite a bit, is not fantastic. I mean, Magnus will be trying to build up that Blink that does buff their initiation massively, but in the tri-lane, I'm just not sure.
Now, they are doing a really, really interesting play up here on the top lane, trying to creep cut underneath the feet of Anti-Mage here. He's having to tank some creeps on the tower, has a Stout Shield to work with here, but an Ion Shell makes that very difficult to deal with. He can't really run, he can't really hide. He has that Blink coming back up, and they do get the double damage. Here is going to be a Splitter to follow, but it's not actually going to connect onto Winter, unfortunately. Now, they really don't have an opportunity to follow this up. Winter gets Ion Shield, which I don't feel he can really capitalize on, but he is salving up. He's coming back on into the fray, and we are looking for a 3 versus 3 matchup here, and with the Anti-Mage not the only one in the picture, I do feel like the Blade Fury Ion Shell combo can work on much more effectively on some other supports, like the Leshrac, like the ST, after that disruption has already been used.
This game started out weird with the lineups and the players' Blaze, and it's only getting weirder.
Yeah.
Darkseer, Jug, I mean, the levels for Darkseer aren't going to be there, I feel like, but this is actually a ton of damage.
Should be First Blood here, easily. Actually, good changing targets over to, I love that play on switching over to Shadow Demon. He gets the disruption, but he'll still die, and that's going to be First Blood actually for the Darkseer to set him up very, very nicely. Again, LK not able to find farm during this entire time period. 4 CS, now up to 5. It doesn't really matter too much because the pressure is always there, and I really do think that this has been as effective as they want it to be.
Sure, I mean, yeah. Already getting a kill, very strong, putting a ton of pressure on this tri-lane. I really did think Anti-Mage SD and Lesh was rock solid, but it's somewhat unorthodox. You do see Darkseer-based tri-lanes. It's just rare that you see them with heroes that are usually higher on the farm priority list than Darkseer, like Juggernaut is. But it does look like Juggernaut is mostly just going to take a slight backseat, less of a hard carry jug or even a semi-carry jug, and more just of generating that tons of damage by being able to spin to win. In concert with the Darkseer, that is very, very respectable damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get that Iron Shell, you maybe surge them into him to get in a good position, and then as soon as he pops that Blade Fury, if he's close enough, then there's absolutely nothing that can be done for Mistrust. They can delay things 2.5 seconds with the Disruption, but that's about all they really have to bring to it here, because he's going to be immune to being disabled himself. Right now, they want to go for offensive peels, they want to go for offensive disruptions that just kind of pull them out of a different spot, but in this situation here, it's more so going the other way around. Now, Abba on the bottom lane is having a much better time of things, going up against a Lone Druid 1 versus 1. It's not always the easiest thing, but with a Weaver, it's not going to be the hardest either. He has the Sentry Ward down, that'll negate a little bit of the flexibility of Shikuchi, but in general, you're still seeing that the Weaver is getting some CS here and there, and he'll be able to get some cool items up.
And up in the middle, let's note also, Tidehunter is doing quite well. He's about tying that Magnus. They're not seeking to just blow the Magnus away. But I really like this Tidehunter pickup, and I like that they put a mid, because that's what you sort of get when Magnus is the de facto mid. It's not something like a Bat Rider that's just going to kill you and kill you and kill you. Magnus sort of, it's not that he struggles mid, but he needs the Bottle Crow. He's not likely to get that many kills until he actually picks up that RP. So you can put stuff like a Tidehunter middle, or you can even do something like what we watched earlier today when a team put a Omni Knight middle, where you know that you're not really in that much danger, so you can just put whoever you want to get levels mid, and they'll get it. And that's what we're seeing from this Tidehunter. He's going to hit 6, pretty much around the same time Magnus.
Yeah, he's got 400 experience per minute. I mean, no real kills for him, but it doesn't matter. He's controlling so very well, anchor smashing every time.
He's anchor smashing the crap out of Magnus.
Yeah, every single time. There's really nothing he can do but go for runes back to back, whether it's quarrying it up or finding a regen rune down and bottom. He needs to really take those opportunities and get the big sustainability, because otherwise he's just going to be really in a bad spot. We do see FZFC forced out of his first bear summon, but he's been able to trade nicely with the Weaver, and with this Entangle Brock, he's actually going to be able to get the kill under the Sentry Ward. That is going to be a solo kill. 1 versus 1, such a big Entangle.
That was a big Entangle. It's actually pretty weird to me, Blaze, because he doesn't have the Panda Bear, but he's still got an Entangle.
Funny.
I'll have to look into this.
But yeah, no, even without the cosmetics, you can still proc off a very key disable, and from that, having the Sentry Ward already down, that last right click was able to follow up after that Entangle faded. So really good preemptive timing, and that single 100 gold usage now jumps up so that FZ is actually sitting at 485 experience per minute. He's going to hit 7 and 8 so very quickly.
I've confirmed, actually, and you can still entangle even if you have the normal bear. So, you know, you learn something new every day.
Still on that pay-to-win method, I believe. But either way, I love this ward from mith.trust picking up this Observer. It's been around for a little while here, about 3 minutes, but it's actually been helping out LK a lot. He's been able to move in towards 22 CS, and he doesn't have to be constantly worrying about these flanking actions here, because, again, if you're jumping on in, you have Lubby, Miracle, and Winter all going on the aggression, all going for kills with a spin, with an Iron Shell, with a Magic Missile. It's not going to be really that bad for LK, but his supports are always going to be easy targets that'll be dropped down very swiftly.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely.
In this position, having that kind of vision, knowing when they're coming this direction so that you can position yourselves appropriately, I think that is critical knowledge, which has prevented much more so MUFC from capitalizing on their current matchup on the top.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this hard support Juggernaut kind of inspired, just in terms of you want a support that's going to do a lot of damage, and especially against a Shadow Demon Leshrac lane, which is almost just, you know, impenetrable by somebody. You can just do it by making sure that you spin right through the disruption, you spin right through the Split Earth, and consequently they can't do anything to you. You can get up red in that anti-mage's face, you can kill those supports. Gonna have a fight again in the middle here.
Yeah,
sorry, at the top.
Actually on top, yeah, Winter taking a lot of damage to the lightning. One more right click from Anti-Mage. He's probably gonna fall here. Yeah, the last right click will come through from LK. Does get Soul Catcher onto Miracle. They go for the disruption. They still have the Split Earth, and they will get a second kill out of this. Lubby will take a fall. Double kill for Anti-Mage, looking for 3. They are gonna be able to right click him down with the Ravage. Completely whiffed with that Surge active on Miracle. Bad timing for them. But LK still has, no, he's not gonna go with rank 1 Blink. Just gonna be able to tranquilize ankle boots up and try to pull himself out of an awkward position. But the Ion Chill has some other intentions.
It's quite awkward. Magnus.
Yeah, coming on in, but LK, all right for the moment. But again, that Blink is only rank 1, and he is completely in no man's land. Fortunately, quite literally no man's land, as the Radiant have not been able to transition into kind of this portion of the map here. So really, really well covered up. And we actually do miss, unfortunately, a kill up on the top. Darkseer in a very awkward position. What is that about?
Just going up a little too much. I think they wanted to actually generate something on the Leshrac. Honestly, I think the Winter Death on Juggernaut was uncalled for too. He could have spun substantially earlier, in my opinion, and he would have saved himself a lot of trouble. But they're trying to keep pressuring this lane. They're trying to continue having the game in their favor up here. And for the last
Tangle on bottom. Oh, Weaver. Oh, gets the time lapse. He will be able to pop off his ulti and try to turn around on to FCFC. Big Geminates, but he's already losing so much damage. One more Entangle's all they need, but the last right click underneath the sentry won't be sufficient here. Now we do see them putting pressure on the tower once more. Is this enough to force LK back so he cannot safely farm up a core item like Battle Fury? Is he going to just have to opt for something else?
He's still getting decent farm. I think he'll probably still go the Battle Fury unless things go substantially worse. Right now he's being pressured a lot, but you see he's still sort of finding farm. Lakel's, I mean, he's a great player. We've seen him play for ages. I think we saw him at the International 1. So, like, he knows what he's doing. They actually still can't get Weaver, which surprises me. The Magnus actually had a full rotation of
big damage coming in from Winter onto LK, but he should be able to evade on out, just walks on out of there. Winter gonna be taking some hits, but with that surge, they're actually gonna be able to pull him out of harm's way. They actually have only committed 3 versus this 4, but so far they're being not having too many issues. The big thing there, TNK is still not having that Ravage up, and with that, MUFC will be able to just relatively hold a medium, not aggressive position, but they're not turtling under the tower either. They could just kind of sit in the middle ground and kind of fight their own battles. But down on bottom, it's a completely different story. Weaver is completely on the defensive. That solo kill, setting things up so nicely for FCFC, and now by summoning this new bear, he has pretty much full presence on this lane. Weaver won't necessarily die because of the time lapse, but every single time he goes forward, he's going to have to fight for less hits, which is something Weaver generally doesn't have to worry the least bit about. It's really, really unfortunate for him.
Sure, I mean it's a 30 last hit deficit or something. Like that's and a tower and a death.
Yeah, tower definitely.
Weaver definitely struggling a little bit early. The Lone Druid has been playing very, very well. Obviously he did get that 1 kill with the lucky entangle, or not lucky. I mean he was bashing on the Weaver every chance he got. So excellent play coming out from FCFC. We mentioned that he's a strong Lone Druid player. We do see MUFC relying on his LD as the #1 farmer sometimes, and so far he's been doing a great job. Honestly, really getting them that advantage early on. But now there's a little more space for anti-mage. I do like the poise coming out from mith.trust, where it's like they know that they're facing a ton of pressure in this lane. They know it's a dangerous trial, and actually trouble for Tidehunter.
Nope, not yet. The Orb of Venom slowing him down, but he still has that Kraken Shell available. Does get entangled, but they're not going to be able to follow up too much on it. Shockwave will come out. Battle Cry allows the bear to tank up a bit more, but just trying to recall out and disjoint as many cower right clicks as possible because they don't know where the enemy is. Looking at vision, they have an interesting ward up here covering the top area for anybody running through that juncture, but as far as high ground, there are no lane wards in mid, and that allows a little bit of damage from the Leshrac. The Lightning trying to counter push away, buying more and more time for the anti-mage is all they want, but the healing ward, rank 2, dropping down now is going to make that easier said than done. Swarm comes on out, more food, more money for MUFC as they just continuously try to delay things on out. But the Shadow Poisons aren't really landing their mark. Even at rank 3, it's just not doing the damage it needs to, and they are still able to sustain very, very nicely here.
Yeah, I would have loved for the ward to actually travel with the bear, because the bear is sitting out of the ward's range a lot, and it's not healing it quite as much as they could. But I think that won't diffuse this push too
going
much.
on in, they actually did not get the magic missile off. Instead, doing a lot of damage here is that big damage from Pulse. I'm getting a beautiful RP out. Gonna get 2 kills as a result. Leshrac and Shadow Demon both dropping down. They got the skewer, they got the RP, and now the only casualty is gonna be Lubby here. However, popping off that Ravage is gonna put Miracle in a bad spot, but they don't really have any other way of locking them down. FCFC, the only one in harm's way, and he should be able to just walk on out of there. Just so darn tanky, and kind of using the bear as a distraction method if he can just recall it, but unfortunately, the Shikuchi does come on through. He will have to resummon it, and you know, as long as he doesn't need it again in 120, I guess it's not the biggest deal, but Weaver's happy to pick up an extra 100 bounty every once in a while.
I'm surprised that at Abba's choice to just pursue the bear there and not actually try to get a kill on who was actually fleeing. Miracle, I think, was fleeing. I felt
everybody.
like they might have been able to get a kill with the Weaver if he just kept chasing, but they choose not to. And instead, there's going to be an easy deny down here from UFC.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, did I speak too soon? But no, they did manage to deny it. Big fight again in middle.
Oh yeah, didn't even catch that there. But without the Ravage, I don't feel like Myth.trust really has that much ground to stand on. They pop off the disruption, they disengage from this here, but they're just kind of drawing the line, trying to keep the tower up. But even some just opportunistic right clicks during that little bit of skirmish they had underneath the tower, they were able to bring it down to about 1/3 HP, and that's going to be a quick and easy push the second they abandon it. That's why Myth.trust is kind of drawing the line in the sand and trying to force the issue on this tower this very second, because you blink and that thing's going to be gone.
Sure, absolutely. I think both teams are sort of advancing the position that they want. Anti-Mage at this point, honestly, Lekels has gotten plenty of free time, and this is always what Myth wanted. It doesn't matter that they're not really winning these engagements mid, as long as they're not losing by a dramatic amount, because now, of course, the Anti-Mage, well on the way to his Battle Fury. It won't be the fastest Battle Fury in the world. It's not going to be a burning Battle Fury. It's not going to be a Zhou Battle Fury, but it's going to... Well, actually, that's not a great example, but it's not going to be like a burning or a Sylar Battle Fury. It's going to be a little slower, but it'll be plenty fast enough for what they want to do.
Yeah, they're still going to accomplish a lot with the split pushing aspect as well. They're all just getting more and more from Lekel, and they're currently running what I would consider a dual core. Abba, although he had a rough start, is now finding plenty of farming opportunities right on here down in the bottom lane, and that is giving him a window of opportunity where he can get bigger and better items. Weaver can be actually an amazing carry if he just finds the farm. It's not always played that way, as we saw him in an off lane that wasn't the best matchup for him, but generally speaking, he gets that tank ability. Time lapse is amazing. He gets that right click damage, and the Geminate will just duplicate how much that can output there. So
yeah, he just needs to be dangerous enough to be a threat so that Anti-Mage can get even bigger. And I do like the build coming out from Abba here because he isn't that hard carry Weaver. The Swarm is really good these days. Like, people don't talk about it much, but it does some very substantial damage, and the armor reduction is non-trivial too, considering you've got an Anti-Mage beating on those self-same targets. And the vision isn't trivial either. It's just an ability with a lot of good stuff on it, and I like that he's maxing it before Geminate.
Mid-tower fortified up, but Magnus does buy out his Blink. Sitting in stash for the moment won't be relevant in this engagement here, but TNK has to watch his mana pool here. It's going to actually be the tower's death. Lightning will come out, but just some harassment damage. The tower has already fallen, and that's the cue for MUFC to fall back, taking their objective, getting near a Maelstrom on FZFZ, and from there they just pretty much are going to be able to get more and more damage potential.
Absolutely. Sorry, give me a second.
No problem at all. Interesting Vengeful Spirit build, though. One thing to mention here, Lovey maxing out the Magic Missile. It's great for a gank-oriented play, trying to just go for early kills here. As far as the burst magic damage it provides, it is substantial, but in a push-oriented lineup, something that you see a little bit more commonly is the maxing of that Vengeance Aura. We don't see that in this situation here, so they're only getting a decent boost, a 12% boost on the Bear and everybody's damage for that matter, but I kind of feel if they wanted to put a little bit more pressure on the towers, and force it so that Weaver and Anti-Mage were kind of having to fight as a team, then they could actually have max that a little bit more aggressively.
I get what you're saying. I just want to go back to the fact that that is their only reliable single target stun.
True.
So maxing it out, just getting a little bit more timing on it, closer to the 2-second mark. Considering that we're about to finish a Maelstrom and probably soon a Mjolnir, eventually a Mjolnir on the Spirit Bear, that's going to be like 2-ish extra attacks that it can do, which means you have a higher chance to entangle, which means you have a higher chance to just win the fight outright right there. So I do actually like the Magic Missile first. It is, of course, a trade-off. There could be trouble
very
for
bad for FZFC. He's probably 100% dead. Like, there's very little he can do in this situation here. He gets Soul Catcher, he gets Split Earth, and he's going to try to TP, but the right-click damage is too much. The Demonic Purge. If the Soul Catcher had gone on the Bear, he would have survived just by TPing on out, but unfortunately didn't go that way. Dropped the Soul Catcher Bomb, and even that 20% increase set it up so they can get that kill, and he's level 10. That's all the experience in the world they could acquire from that position. Definitely,
for their under-level supports, which is great. I do want to say good waiting by SD there. He waited for the Soul Catcher until the moment at which he was sure it had at least 50% chance to actually hit FCFC. If he had just bombed that Soul Catcher right from the beginning, very good chance it would have hit some creeps. And we actually, honestly, I mean, I know people will think, oh, that's like a standard play, but in the last game, we had missed soul catchers, so you got to make sure you maximize those chances, and he did a good job of that.
On mid lane, a little bit of pressure here. They actually pop out the Ravage, looking to mana void him down. 2 more right clicks is all they need, but he does get the mech. He needs the magic stick, but he didn't pop it off. Anchor Smash down in the end. He got the Surge, and if he magic sticked, I think the Anchor Smash would have been just shy of killing him because he does have 12 armor to work with. Actually, I think even 2 on top of that with the mechanism buff. So that's a lot of armor up against even a rank 4 Anchor, but I don't know. It just unfortunately didn't get the timing on that stick charge, and therefore it did get locked down. But they did use the Ravage. It was a great kill for them, but they don't have that available for 120, and for that reason, we see the aggression already coming out from MUFC. They have the Omni Slash, they're raring to go, they're smoked up, and they want to make a play.
They definitely want to make a play. I think it's smart for them to do so, but I think Myth right now are feeling very good about the status of this game. They're getting the space for Lakells. We talked about a slow start, but honestly, I mean, he's had the Battle Fury for a decent amount of time. He now has 2 kills on the board. He's going to build towards his next item. Will they catch out Abba here is sort of my question.
Yeah, they need to pop off the RP to make this happen. They do it. Abba is taking too much here. The Magic Missile to follow, and can they burst him down hard enough for that Omni? Omni and Skewer, they're going to get the kill, and that's really important because otherwise Time-Lapse would have negated everything they accomplished there.
Yeah, I mean, well played by MUFC. They need to get kills on these core heroes. Anti-Mage was not going to happen. They'd have to walk all the way over. So it's good to kill the Weaver. He is the number 2 for Myth. He is going to get pretty big. Not quite yet. He has that, I think that's probably a casual Vit booster. This is a good item for Weaver. You need that little bit of survivability. And actually, the trade-off for FCFC, were you on this?
No, I unfortunately was not. They dived down on the mid lane there, and they were actually able to bring him down with Shadow Demon just barely surviving. Now getting earned on up, but they go in with the Disruption, presumably Soul Catcher, but they got the follow-up Gush. That's actually at rank 4 now, so it's a great armor reduction, great slow, and they were able to follow it up with some powerful right-click damage. So a good initiation. Unfortunately, I didn't catch it myself, and obviously MUFC wasn't really too quick to the retaliation either, as they didn't really get a chance to TP down in the mid and try to prevent the dive. Either way, that is going to be a nice little kill, and that's his, I believe, second death. Yeah, that's second death
getting
in
the
game.
kill on FCFC, bringing that sort of strategy down while your anti-mage just continues to farm. This is classic, and this is something mith.trust love to do. We've seen this many times. I think this year they're responsible for, I don't know the exact statistic, but a substantial percentage of the longest Dota 2 professional games this year that we've seen have come out from mith.trust, actually. Of course, there was also that knockdown drag-out fight with Orange and LGD the other day. That was also insane. But, I mean, they like this long game. They feel confident with it. They know that Weaver and Anti-Mage will get bigger. And they're not wrong. Juggernaut and Lone Druid, I mean, they're powerful heroes. They're great at pushing. But they don't have the carry potential that an Anti-Mage and a Weaver have. They just don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in this position, it looks like Lorakel is going to be disassembling his Tranquil Boots to build up for a Vladimir's Offering. It's a great altercation to his current item set, because one issue is if a couple of right-clicks come his way, those Tranquil Boots being broken will really, really inhibit his mobility. If there is any chance of him getting entangled, then he's suddenly locked down in a bad spot, and any kind of follow-up after that, if you can't run from this Vengeful Spirit, she can swap you, so on and so forth. So I really think getting rid of those Tranquils outside the laning phase is probably his best course of action. The Vladimir's to boot with it kind of works well with his entire team benefiting so much from some extra right click.
Good preternatural sort of spider sense coming out. More of like a bug sense, right? Good sense from Weaver there of just when to TP out way before MUFC actually arrived with their smoke gank. They didn't spot out the smoke at all, but the Weaver knew exactly when to move. And you do see him, I actually love this Weaver build, because he's not going to be the hard carry that Anti-Mage is, but I really like the Medallion, because again, they have a decent amount of armor reduction in the form of the Swarm plus Medallion that Anti-Mage is going to be hitting quite hard, even before he hits his biggest items. And it's great for Roche.
Yeah, when you put together a Vlad's Medallion, it doesn't matter what composition you have, but a Tidehunter with Gush adding on top of that really, really makes it work here. That is a huge amount of armor reduction, and even, yeah, they don't have the Edict, so that's not going to be a factor, but still, they have a -5 armor Roche and a 0 armor at the least. It's dropping quickly, and that's going to be completely uncontested here. And, of course, Aegis on an Anti-Mage that's already level 13 is going to make it harder and harder to actually get some permanent damage on this guy. He's going to just stay active. He's actually stacking up to Battle Fury down the Ancients, and he's just going to get bigger and bigger until that Manta Style is in his clutches.
Yeah, this AM is big, Blaze, and he's only going to get bigger. And it's a tough position for MUFC to be in, because when you're running as many stand-ins as they are, I mean, you have some coordination, but they're in a position where their team has to do stuff. Myth doesn't really have to do much of anything other than play fairly safe, so their margin for error is somewhat wide. MUFC's margin for error is quite narrow. They need to make sure that every 3 to 4 minutes they get a kill on either Weaver or Anti-Mage, preferably both. And that's tough to do when you're not used to playing with the full team. I mean, luckily half the team are used to playing with each other, and the other half are used to playing with each other, but as a unit of 5, you know, some of these ganks will have to be 5-man ganks, and the question is, will they be able to have the level of communication necessary to do that?
It's very, very difficult, especially going up against a Ravage and a Mechanism available from TNK. He is ready to just throw things the other direction and make sure that they don't have the potential to engage solely on one person. They might get a quick little RP pickoff onto Abba like they did before, but in general, going in 5 versus 5, it's not only about coordination, it's just about the potential to kill these guys. And with an Aegis, with a time lapse, and the Mechanism and the Tidehunter to buy them time for that time lapse, it's going to be very difficult to actually to lock these guys down.
And yeah, I mean, Myth playing safe, they know this style, and Anti-Mage, Lakel's at this point, he's farming both stacked Ancient camps. And so he's going to be a terrifyingly large Anti-Mage very, very soon. And at that point, I wouldn't say MUFC are out of the game. They do have that combo, they could get an Entangle series. The Lone Druid is hardly, FCFC is hardly farming badly. He has that Maelstrom, he's going to build towards his next item soon.
Lorkel focusing on Lubby, he is already Demonic Purge up, so that's an easy kill there for the Anti-Mage. He can just pursue onto more. So looking for Winter, they're going to get him cleaned up by the Weaver himself, actually picking up a gem. That's a huge amount of gold just thrown away. Oh,
I mean, it's
so
not
painful.
even the gold, it's like, you don't have a gem.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about the Weaver now?
Yeah, exactly. No cooldown, no utility from that gem, and of course, yeah, that's still a hefty price they have to pay.
Blaze, they just bought that gem. They have a 9-minute CD to get it.
Exactly.
Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. That Weaver's going to be trouble. I mean, he isn't the pure hard carry Weaver, but now he's quite survivable. He's actually added on a cloak, so that'll protect him from some of the damage throwing out from Darkseer, Venge, and he will be very dangerous.
Most definitely. And in this position here, we haven't even seen any follow-up detection pickups from MUFC, so they might just have to kind of give up the go with the fact that they can't bring down this Weaver. They have to kind of just change targets and change focus, because when he's Shikuching on through, it's not just movement speed. He's going to be effectively invulnerable to single target damage because they just can't see him. Yeah, bottom, FCSV is completely locked down. They've actually penciled him in extremely effectively here, and there's just nothing he can accomplish. A nice little entangle, but it doesn't change his fate at all.
It did cost them a Ravage, but they're so happy doing that because FCFC is the core. Remember, this is a hard support juggernaut. He's got Power Treads and Urn. And, I mean, sad to report, but the Urn has a whopping 0 charges.
Yeah, and fortunately for him. Now, there is attempt to Magic Missile, but unfortunately Anti-Mage blinking on out means Lorkel will be able to stay on target here. He needs to kill off this Healing Ward to get the kill, but instead just changes over to Miracle. Because they have the, Medallion on Miracle, he is going to be able to take a lot of right-clicks, but still can keep on moving. And although he's out of mana, he has a lot to work with as far as health. The Healing Ward making sure that's the case, and it looks like our Lorkel is just going to have to fall back from here. Changing his targets, he's going to go onto the Magnus, but with a Blink, with a Skewer, there's absolutely no chance to finish him off, and they just have to farm, just have to take this opportunity to push up. But the one thing is, MUFC is terrified of a team that doesn't even have a Ravage available. If they're not taking fights now, whenever can they actually find them?
Right, and they know there's no Ravage. They just saw it kill their Lone Druid, and so the fact that they feel nervous, it's trouble, because it's okay they didn't chase down the Darkseer, okay they didn't get the Magnus. Myth hardly care, because it's more farm for Lakels, it's almost risk-free to just chase these guys back in their base and continue pressuring them. And let's keep in mind, even Leshrac alone is a non-trivial damage presence. Like, he's got this rank 2 Diabolic Edict. In another couple of levels, he'll have rank 4 Diabolic Edict, and then that's a lot of push that they can bring to bear on you while this Anti-Mage moves closer and closer to I have finished farming status. By the way, check out this pure survivability AM. I think he just wants to make sure he lives. It's going to be a fast heart.
Wow, that's very interesting of a build. I mean, it means that even with an Entangle or a Bash proc coming out of the Lone Druid, that he's not just going to meet his fate. Same thing with a Reverse Polarity. Another thing to mention is that if you're going up against Wall of Replica here, you hand them a really, really tanky Anti-Mage, and it's going to be just that. It doesn't have a Blink built in. It's still just a passive right-clicker. So in that situation there, they won't be able to, Mistrust won't be able to burst down the fake AM, but they also won't have to worry about its attack speed or damage that much. The agility is not being purchased at all. So in this situation, we're looking at an Anti-Mage that's actually only sitting on 73 Agi. He only has 182.
He has a lot more STR than he has Agi.
But the drawback of that is that in this situation, went for Vladimir's. You only get lifesteal based on the damage you deal, and if you're not hitting that hard, it's not adding that much more to your survivable potential. So
it's armor though too.
Yeah.
It's more damage for the Weaver. It's armor for the entire team, and then they worry a little less about that lone druid. They worry less about Jug, although frankly Jug's melee damage right now is nothing to write home about. In fact, this is a level 9 Juggernaut with 71 damage pre-Vengeful Spirit. Like, Winter is mostly dangerous for Blade Fury right now, and the fact that he can heal. But again, Healing Ward Lone Druid is a pushing composition. And if you're not the team pushing, you're getting very little value out of it. And the fact that they made the decision that they didn't want to give Winter the farm. They wanted to get it onto Miracle's Darkseer. And what that means is that they have far less damage to work with now. Like, the Darkseer, he's big. He's going to go towards Sheepstick, most likely to try to deal with Lakel's, but is it enough? I'm not sure, Blaze. What do you think?
It's going to be very, very difficult. In this position here, I don't necessarily think that, like, Lorkel can go and 1 versus 5 or anything like that. He doesn't have that kind of damage output, but what he can do is survive against a 5-man gank. They can put everything on him, and unless the disables are impeccable, he's still going to be able to just blink on away as soon as he gets that active available. In this position here, he's farming away, he's split pushing up, and he's at absolutely no risk. He has a TP scroll, and that's all he needs. Suddenly, he can actually go for this tier 2 despite being flanked up by 3. We'll see how this item build pays out in the long run, but he's just going to blink on away. So,
yeah, it's myth.trust.
It's all about them creating space.
Play safe.
I've followed these guys to a decent extent since International 1, and even though they've changed out their roster quite a bit since then, they still have a very, very similar style of always having created space. They have so much control of the map right now, even with all these Radiant wards. Look at the warding that has come out from MUFC, and think about how little it matters to this Anti-Mage who's just jumping all about.
They have 4 wards, like they have the full complement of wards down, and every single one is in their jungle. Yeah. Like this panoply of wards is actually generating very little in the way of map vision or map control. Not only that, Lakel's hardly even gives a crap. He's farming in the spot that they have wards in.
Yeah, they have full control of the southeastern portion of the map, and he still will not leave this position. He doesn't have to. He has great understanding of what they're up to, and now he's finally moving in towards that Manta. He just has huge survivability. As soon as he can Manta out of the Entangle, there's literally nothing they can do to lock him down.
Sure. So, Blaze, you're the captain, you're Winter right now. What do you tell your team for how to come back?
Well, first, I think it's awesome that I'm Winter suddenly, and I like to just appreciate myself all the more for that. But I think they need to use a little bit more about what Polison's got going on. He's gotten a ton of farm, finding a Force Staff, finding a Blink Dagger, and they need to make this work for them. Either doing some cool plays with Lubby where he gets Force Staffed and swapped in, and try to pick off the Weaver before he can cast off a time lapse. Something like that would be really nice. Those kind of combos can be very powerful. The limiting factor on that is the Tide's Blink.
Swap.
Level 1 swap. I mean, that's nothing to write home about either, but TNK can always counter-initiate. You pull out one position, you all group up on that one person because you're 5-man and you're just desperate for a kill, and suddenly you're all hit by Ravage, and there's just going to be too much damage to follow up against that. It's so rough.
Yeah, I do agree that they need to get creative. Because that's really their only hope, is to somehow win a weird team fight, one that doesn't go quite the way Myth are expecting. Because Myth right now have control, and I feel like that's something they value highly as a team, is we have control of the situation. We can be as safe or as aggressive as we want to be. Sure, usually we pick safe, but we could be aggressive, and like MUFC would have no recourse. Like, we can do whatever we want, we can control the map, we can farm everywhere, and consequently, sooner or later, we're going to win. So what you have to do is move them out of that comfort zone. For instance, the super safe 4 wards in the solo jungle, I don't like this. I think they should try to cover the map, try to get out there, and really try to take kills on those heroes. Even if 9 times out of 10 you're not going to catch Lakel's out, you have to try. Like, right now, I feel like they're just being withered away, really. Like, maybe they can get Refresher on Magnus, but that isn't going to happen anytime soon. Maybe they can get big items on FCFZ, but Mjolnir isn't going to cut it alone. They need more, and I feel like they need to take bigger chances. Yeah. Is really what it comes down to for me.
If they don't find the picks, there's absolutely no hope for them to actually pull this out. Straight up, the Anti-Mage is getting so big that in a fair fight, he will be able to just dominate anything. He's picking up his Phantom style as we speak, and in that position there, he is unstoppable. Throw an Aegis on this guy, and suddenly the base is his. But that's
and
still...
suddenly while we're talking about winter, base in trouble, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're split pushing up on top. Lorkel is going to go up on the top lane, but we do see a little bit of this play that we saw need to be dynamic. The problem is when the smoke expires and the Omni Slash doesn't follow immediately, TNK is ready to blink. He's on out of there. He's in a safe spot, and from there, look at the damage Anti-Mage is putting on in. This is his.
Base is in trouble.
This is his home now. Easily is.
Oh my god. I mean, almost the entire tier 3 down right there. And on the backside, they pick up Miracle.
Yeah, just didn't get the memo there. Just pretty much on the back foot. They all ran in. They're like, okay, let's try to make something happen. Absolutely nothing happened as a result, and suddenly they lose the Darkseer for 45 seconds. Plenty of opportunity to go for the Roche. I'm not sure if they were even concerned about it in the first place, but now they are like 100%. There is absolutely nothing that could possibly prevent them from seizing this Aegis. And
no, I mean, it's theirs. I have a question. What do you think about... Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Jug support DS as the farmer in the lane. Would it have been better if they had tried to get farm for the Juggernaut?
The question is, what difference would it have made in that scenario here? What Darkseer was able to acquire is a mechanism and a scythe. Compared to that, what would Juggernaut get? He'd get Yasha, he'd get Drum. They'd get some mobility, they'd get some extra damage in a physical sense, which is, albeit really good against Anti-Mage because he's all about negating magic.
Right.
So, I think that in that sense, they'd get more offensive capability with the Juggernaut farm, whereas the defensive capability with the Darkseer. He got the shape, which is kind of both best of both worlds, but the mechanism, which was the thing that he's had for most of this match, is all about defensive proportions. So in this scenario, they have been on the defensive the entire time, and I've talked multiple times over about needing to be defensive.
Big jukes from that SD, completely escaping, and the bear ineffectually tromping over where it was. This is going to be a fight.
Looking for a fight. This is what they've been looking for the whole time. Starting off the sheep, but he has the Kraken Shell. You can't lock him down. He's going to get the Ravage out on multiple. They get the spin at least, but TNK next on up. There's a Split Earth. Magnus not going to get his RP off. He will actually get a ton of healing, though, and he is still going to be perfectly fine. Swarm ticking away, but it's actually going to be Abba that's dishing out the damage. FZ, but he does get entangled. Pretty big entangle, but damage is already happening. It's all spread out, and this is not a fight that MUFC can take. They are like all split up individually, and in the entire time they have to fall back because the tier 3 is already down. The Mana Void doesn't come down on Miracle, or it does, but it doesn't do enough damage, so not that big of a concern. But nevertheless, Lorkel is again fearless in this position, and since the fortification's on cooldown, one more right click and suddenly this is his. They don't want to give him that though. Sheep and the RP, but look at his HP. He still takes the racks. He's like, screw it, you guys got nothing left. And then he will just be able to blink away. Oh,
he gives so few shits about any of this. I mean, this is the tanky mage build, right? He's got Heart and Aegis and Manta and Vlads. They just can't kill him.
Yeah, and he just got like a third of his HP, half his HP back, just by being out of the fight for a handful of seconds here. It's just too much. Walking into the wall, whatever. I'll do it myself.
I get lifesteal from beating on my own illusion.
Yeah. But he loses mana, and that's the important thing.
True, he loses mana. That is important, Blaze. I mean, let's go back to the Darkseer thing you were saying. Yes, they definitely got way more defensive presence. But if you're the Lone Druid Juggernaut team, is defense really what you want? I feel like push and offense is what you want. You want to push through there.
Skewer, nice opportunity here, but the magic missile is never going to latch, and Lorkel is going to be able to get out. And yeah, I completely agree with you. The entire time, the one thing they've been lacking is an offensive presence. No offensive wards in the jungle in the mid game, and although they had the Magnus initiation, they never felt compelled to do anything with it. They're like, okay, well, we have Magnus can get in any spot he wants. He can move if you can't combine Blink, Force, and Skewer together, that's like 3,000 units of movement. He can get anywhere the hell he wants, but it didn't matter because even with a wall of replica and a vacuum, there would still be plenty of survival, plenty of counter initiation by Myth.trust, and they couldn't take that chance. If they had damage to go on the disable, that'd be a different story.
Right, I mean, but that's the thing, like, let's talk Turkey. A level 2 reverse polarity, it doesn't last an infinity of time. It lasts 3 seconds. Are you gonna burn through a 21 armor, 3,000 HP anti-mage in 3 seconds?
Yes.
If you do, you probably won the game, but I don't think you do. And at this point, Lakel's, I mean, this AM is... He hasn't finished farming just yet, but they're probably going to win before he does.
Yeah, now we do see this RP kind of going on through with a weird timing of the Force out. The Ravage has already popped off here, but it's actually a fight that the Radiant can take. They're actually going to be able to bring down the Leshrac and try to clean things up, but Lorkel has too much. He's just going to be able to right-click things on down. Vengeful Spirit drops. Now he's going to be looking for more, but he might get entangled here. The bear kind of losing focus, going down onto Abba, but that allows LK to just pretty much... He's farming creeps right here because he has the Aegis. Just wants to die. He's like, please, kill me right now. Got the bear kill. More money in the pocket so he can come back up with full life, full mana, and finish this off for good because they've already taken down the big threats. They've taken down the RP. They've taken down the Wall of Replica. He can get Scythed, he can get Skewered. That's about it. And now they're going to be looking at racks.
Now they're going to be looking at Mega Creeps, and I think that we're probably going to see the tap out. Although in C Dodo, you never tap out for the last moment, which I admire the fighting spirit, but this is about as over as a game can be, frankly. 5 versus 1, they can't kill this AM. Like, nothing can kill this AM. He's just going to Megas them freely, basically.
Yeah, and this seems like a very, very inactive game as far as kills go, looking at it 9 and 14, but it's pretty much because they was... Both, you think about like the unstoppable force and the immovable object. Well, both teams kind of played the immovable object. Both teams played survivable, and neither one of them had any issue with surviving. They never really had to worry about aggressive things. LK's build shows just that. But one thing to coincide with that is that mith.trust is happy to take this late game.
There we go.
Yeah, so they locked down a couple of kills, and this is going to be a good game called out by FCFC. But to finish that thought, when both teams went defensive, that allowed mith.trust to take this late game. And against Juggernaut Lone Druid, unless your farm is amazing, and again, you talked about how Winter went for the support of Juggernaut, that's always going to go in favor of the Weaver and the Anti-Mage together.
I mean, Winter does not play the #1 role on this team, so I get it. But I don't know. I feel like maybe the Jug would have been the damage that they wanted. They had to be on the offensive. Like, the strategic interplay of the game was relatively obvious, I feel like. You are the team that doesn't have the Anti-Mage Weaver. So clearly it follows that you need to make stuff happen early. Now, they did. I mean, for what it's worth, the Triverse try went quite well for them. They were putting a ton of pressure on the Kells. But I think partially because the Jug he was great in that tri lane and did almost nothing afterwards. Like, we saw maybe one consequential healing word, and even then, it wasn't sitting on the bear, which I don't even know. That's the whole point. Like, that is the whole point. And so they didn't get the push. When they transitioned out of the tri lane, nothing happened. The whole thing just sort of deflated like a balloon. Like, they never actually got the position where they could push forward and push through and put pressure on the Kells to come back. He never felt any pressure to come back. He was just farming, and he was like, okay, I had a slow start, but I'll come back, and I'll come back strong. And that's exactly what he does in the end. 738 GPM Anti-Mage. I mean, there's only so much you can say.
Yeah, there you go. So, Anti-Mage takes it away, goes for those 362 last hits in only 38 minutes. Even with a slightly delayed Battle Fury, he could care less, and he built a build that made it so that he didn't have to worry at all. He was pretty much playing his own game, just had this internal bubble where he could see where the enemy was, he could see what they were capable of, and then it didn't factor into his decision-making whatsoever because it didn't have to. He could pretty much his run of the map as long as he wasn't sitting in the enemy fountain. So, in that position, he obviously came out on top, had everything that he wanted, and from there takes out MUFC for this Game 1. It's a best-of-3 series. Again, this is the quarterfinals of GEST, so we're going to be looking at this next game to see if MUFC can pull it back, and I believe the stand-ins group actually said our strategy next time, so let's see what these three can pull out of their magic hat here and see if they got a completely different draft for us. But either way, obviously not panning out this time around. We'll see if MUFC and their stand-in lineup will be able to bring it back the other direction. Either way, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the commentary to an extent. Again, I'm still a little bit new to the agency, and Vikramon's helping me out a ton with that, and I appreciate that so much. But we're having a lot of fun casting and filling in a little bit for the Beyond the Summit guys. So if you guys did enjoy the commentary, you can check me out at twitter.com/blazecasting. And Vikramon?
You can check me out anywhere where Vikramons are sold. So just Google up VYKROMOND, and you'll probably find me. So, I don't know. Hopefully we'll see a different strategy brought into Game 2 from MUFC, which I think the chat actually dubbed MUFD, which I like because the joke is that, of course, all of their stand-ins are from First Departure.
There you go. There you go. So good combo, and actually, yeah, it looks like majority First Departure in this case, but we'll see if it still works out for them in this next match here.